Okay, folks, let's go ahead and get started. My name is John Lohman. I am the publisher of the Corridor Business Journal. I want to welcome you to our latest free webinar as part of our Corridor Rising 2.0 series. As many of you know, we host a lot of events at the Corridor Business Journal. And with the coronavirus, it has obviously impacted our ability to host in-person events. But we are doing our best to evolve and adapt. And so we have created a webinar series on every Tuesday at noon and Thursday at noon. We've had some great speakers over the last several weeks. And today we're fortunate to have some of the region's best business minds and leaders who really have a great pulse on the economy today. And so we're going to dive right into our discussion. I believe we do have we are live on Facebook as well. If any of you have questions for our panelists, we ask you to write those questions down in the chat section of the Zoom, and I'll do my best to get some of those questions to our speakers. We're fortunate to have Mary Quass, who's the president and CEO of NRG Media. We're fortunate to have Mike Gerdin, the president and CEO of Heartland Express. We've got Charlie Rohde as well. He's the president and CEO of King's Materials and Dakota Red Corporation. And last but certainly not least, we have Joe Ahmann, who's the president and CEO of Ahmann Companies. And I'm going to do my best to channel Jack Evans, who typically moderates these economic events for the CBJ, but we thought we would just go ahead today without Jack. So I'm going to start with Mary Quass. Mary, can you just give us an update on NRG Media, how many radio stations you own and operate, and kind of the geographical area of those stations?
Sure, John, and thanks, by the way, for doing this. This is really important at this time to be able to reach out to people in the community, so thanks for doing that. NRG Media is foundationally a radio company. We have approximately 45 radio stations in 10 different markets in the Midwest. We're in Nebraska, we're in Wisconsin, we're in Illinois, and we're in Iowa. And we serve those communities much like the size of Cedar Rapids. And we provide not just over-the-air broadcasting, but also digital delivery of our brands across multiple distribution platforms. We've been around for a while. We like being in the Midwest. This is where we've chosen to want to do our business and to live and work with great people in the Midwest. And we're happy to be a part of this today, and also happy to be a part of the community to do what we can to try and help people, as all of these people on the panel today are doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Hey, Mike, let's go to you next. Obviously, I think Heartland Express is one of the more high-profile companies in the entire region, but help us understand the scope of Heartland Express and some of the industries that you serve.
Yeah, so we're based here in North Liberty, Iowa, just up the road from the CBJ here. So John and I are good neighbors. Based here, we have 25 locations all across the United States, from Seattle to Jacksonville to Los Angeles, Phoenix, Dallas, Memphis, Richmond, Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So we cover the whole United States, the 48 states, with truckload products, I guess you could say, for anybody moving big products. So our main customers would be Walmart, they would be Lowe's, they would be Home Depot, they would be Kellogg's, they would be FedEx. So a lot of big shippers that are out there that got to move a lot of product, and we move everything from lawn mowers to bird seed to every type of food that's in Walmart or Costco that you could have, General Mills, Kellogg's, whatever is moving in those stores is on our trucks.
Thank you. Charlie, give us an understanding of the service territory for King's Materials and Dakota Red, and give us an understanding of the mix of the business that you have.
Okay, thank you, John. And to Short tail off of Mary. Thank you for doing these. These are extremely important to the business community right now. Dakota Red Corporation is the parent corporation that owns King's Material, Hawkeye Ready Mix, and Midland Concrete Products. We are primarily in the concrete products business. A large portion of our business is ready mix concrete, which we supply primarily throughout Lynn and Johnson counties. When you add water to concrete, there's a limited shelf life, so our geographic area in terms of the ready mix is about 30 miles. Another significant portion of the business is our concrete products or our concrete block manufacturing business. That is kind of split between building block and also the wildly popular landscaping products, the pavers, the retaining wall block, etc. We both wet cast and dry cast landscape products, some of which we will distribute throughout 12 states. Through our stores, which are Clear Lake, Marshalltown, Waterloo, the Cedar Rapids area, Iowa City, and also the Quad Cities. Through that market, we have 15 different locations. We distribute a wide variety of the products that we manufacture ourselves, as well as those manufactured by other masonry and landscape product type vendors. So,
good. Thank you. Joe, give us a handle on the various businesses that you operate, and just a little bit more about the scope of what you do.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. Yeah, we started in business in 1991, primarily working on residential home design and remodels, and over the years have expanded from residential to design to Fusion Architects, which is our commercial architectural firm, then into commercial construction, which is our Compass Commercial Services company, and then recently in the last few years into commercial real estate, property management and property maintenance, which is our Q4 team. So yeah, the nice thing about what we do is we, even though we're all in the construction world, construction industry, we also we do deal with, you know, business to consumer and business to business, two complete different sectors, and are both being affected completely different, you know, in our situation.
Well, I'm going to take this next question to Mary, and then I'm going to ask everybody to weigh in on this if they would. Mary, you know, how was your year going prior to the COVID-19 pandemic? And then what are your projections for the second and third quarters right now for NRG Media?
Good question. Going into 2019 and up through the better part of first quarter, we were doing really well. We were pacing, we were up like 5, 6, 10% for the year, for the quarters. Out quarters looked good. It was shaping up to be what we'd hoped to be a really positive market going forward for 2020. And then when the whole sort of world sort of fell apart, we went from looking at the growth that we had to counting the cancellations. You know, we were very intricately involved in the communities that we serve, and we work with local, regional, and national businesses within those communities. And when all of this hit, the first inclination was, not unlike, John, you've seen that also, but not unlike a lot of businesses that are in the ad business, that's an easy one to cancel. So we went from counting our growth going forward to how many cancellations we had in the day. It was a pretty brutal situation, but at the end of it, we, you know, first quarter went from being up probably 5 to 6% to probably will be down somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 18%, and maybe even a little higher depending on how things go. Second quarter is going to be, depending again on when we get out of this, probably closer to a 20 to 25% down. And Q3 is a little better. They're the optimistic folks that we are. And Q4 is just really hard to tell. A lot of it depends on when it looks like we can get back to being sort of into business again. And the good news, bad news is it's easy for people to discontinue their advertising, and the other side of it is when things get better, you know, we'll be here to be able to serve the needs of the community, to try and be able to let people know that things are going to be better. But so what we've done is we've looked at trying to cut non-essential expenses. One of the things that we decided to do early on is across our company is we've furloughed no one. Our entire staff is on board and getting, you know, they don't have to worry. They got a lot to worry about in their own communities with spouses and family that are losing their jobs. So we just made the commitment that we would stick, they would, you know, we're all in this together, so we'd stick through that. But none of us have been through it before, so we don't know how it'll end, but we take every day at a time and realize that the communities are resilient, and we just need to be there when they're ready to sort of pick things up again. But right now it sucks.
Hey, Mike, can you answer that same question? How are you doing in the first quarter, and how the second and third quarter looked for you?
Yeah, sure. You know, it's a good first quarter. We might be a little bit different than some businesses because everybody went to the stores and they bought as much stuff as they could buy. You know, everything from toilet paper to food, and so it was really busy for us through the end of the quarter. As recently as 3 weeks ago, we had all the freight in the world that we could haul. We had lots of requests to haul more freight. But after everybody got done with the surge, now it's dropping off, and it's dropping off very quickly and very severely. So we have so many businesses that are shut down out there that aren't manufacturing. They're not making anything. They're all at home. So the economy is just going to grind to a slow halt here. We haven't seen the worst of this thing by any means yet. It's just starting to get bad for us. So unfortunately, that's the truth. And you know, as we recover, I think as soon as we can open things up, it'll recover quickly. But it's all a matter of when things get opened up again.
So, Mike, are you thinking that the third quarter is going to be okay, or sounds like second quarter is going to be really rough?
I'm just afraid of how many businesses may not be able to come back, or not be able to come back as strongly as they were prior to the virus. So, you know, I think second quarter is the worst of the 3 quarters that are in front of us here this year by far, and each quarter improving from that. But third quarter may not be very good either.
Charlie, same question to you. How are you doing first quarter, and how's it looking for second and third quarters?
Given that our business is so seasonal, the first quarter is almost never very good. And this year it was better than normal. We were up probably 6 to 8%, at least through the middle of March. The last part of March with the virus, or besides the virus, our weather wasn't very good. And again, it's hard to pour concrete and do construction work in the rain. So for the first few weeks, when I was still sitting at my desk, I was kind of, okay, are we busy? Or pardon me, are we not busy because of the weather or because of the virus? And so far it was more so the weather. Talking to several of our bigger general contractor type customers the last few days, seemingly if people had their plans ready, had their permits, and had their ground under contract, they were pretty well ready to go, and we're seeing most of the projects so far continue, or even continue to start. So right now we've had a couple of very busy days when the sun has been shining. Is it going to continue? I think we're going to be okay second and third quarter. Late this fall and early next year, I'm quite concerned. I would tell you that a lot of our smaller contractors that are doing more residential work, they are having quite a few cancellations. People are conserving cash, and where they would perhaps be putting in a patio or a new driveway, they're thinking about it. And the answer isn't we're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it right now. But for the most part, I would say that we're right about on track with where we thought we would be. Compared to last year. However, we're gearing up for the wrong terminology, but we are mentally preparing for a slowdown.
Okay, Joe, same question to you. How are you looking through the first quarter, and what's going on from your projections for second and third?
Sure. I would say similar to Charlie, you know, our industry being in design and construction, we have certain months of the year that are very strong typically. But as far as for the first quarter, I would say we were on track to a little bit ahead in certain industries, certain of our companies. But the first group to get hit, which I expected because it happened in several times over the almost 30 years of being in business with Ahmann Design, is the residential sector. The consumer sector shuts down the quickest because it's easiest to just put a hold on and say, hey, we still want to do something, but we're just stopping everything for now. And you know, through Ahmann Design, we sell plans statewide, regionally, nationally, and even internationally through the internet. And I just looked at our sales records for April, which we would usually average probably 3 to 4 plans per day that would come through those internet orders. And we've had 5 for the month. So that's down about 80%, which honestly, I'm not surprised. I kind of expected that group to get hit the quickest and the hardest. Remodel jobs have just all come to a halt and just a hold. Now going over to the commercial side, you know, our construction, we've had a pretty good backlog of projects that were under contract, and those are still moving forward based upon the need. And if you look at the business sector and the business section, they're not looking at today or tomorrow. Some of these projects, you know, have a 6-month that we're on to a year to year and a half occupancy date. So, you know, we're looking that far out, and people are saying, yeah, we need to have the space, we need to have what's going on, and we need to just keep moving. So those projects are still going. The concern that I have when you start looking at quarters, because I think our second quarter, other than the residential side, will be strong just because of the backlog. I start to think like Charlie, what's third quarter, fourth quarter, and beyond, because the lag time between getting leads, getting things started, you know, and going through the process of city approvals and everything is such a long time period that I think we're not going to see what that is for quite some time.
Mike, I'm going to go back to you. I was wondering if you can expand a little bit on, you know, the various industries that you carry for, which ones are doing particularly well and which ones are struggling. I know you said you carry for Lowe's and Walmart. And then a follow-up question to that is gas prices are really amazingly low right now. I believe gas prices are a pass-through for you, but can you comment also on the lower price of gas? Is that impacting you at all?
Yeah, sure. Start off with some of the industries that are doing well. Believe it or not, beer is doing very well. You know, we're shipping a lot of beer, and obviously people can't go to the restaurants and they can't go to the bars, but they're still drinking and you know, purchasing beer at home. Obviously, Walmart's doing good, Sam's is doing good, Costco's doing good. All the places that are open are doing fine. It's just not enough to keep everybody busy, as we all know. So industries that are shut down, so to speak, automotive, there's no automotive parts moving, there's no seats, there's no cars, there's no tires, none of that stuff is moving. One of our big customers also Tempur-Pedic, they make mattresses. You know, they make mattresses for hospitals, they make mattresses for dorms, they make mattresses for people's residences. They're closed. TJ Maxx closed. Ross stores closed. You know, so we have all of these ones that are doing pretty well, and then we have a lot more that are not doing hardly anything. And so that's what's going on there. In terms of the fuel prices, it's not a complete pass-through, John. So we get paid for the miles that we haul the load for. We don't get paid for the miles that we deadhead to pick up the load. If we have to go from, say, North Liberty to Cedar Rapids to pick up a load, we don't get paid for those miles. You don't get paid for out of route miles if you take the load out of route for some reason. You don't get paid for deadhead miles or idle time miles. So it's not a direct pass through. So with lower gas prices and lower fuel prices, it does help us a little bit because we recoup probably about 80% of our cost on that. So we have a little bit of help there with low fuel prices. So that's a good thing.
Charlie, I want to go to you now. Can you talk a little bit about the cheap cost of gasoline? How's that helping your industry? And also, can you comment on the construction prices and where you see those headed in the short term?
Well, trying to be a little humorous, the joke of my group of friends is it's the cheapest gas prices in 50 years and nowhere to go. Yes, it is helping our business a little bit, although there isn't always a direct correlation between gasoline and diesel fuel, but it's helping a little bit. It's certainly not going to allow us to retire, but at this point, we're pennies, nickels, and dimes count. In terms of construction prices right now, there hasn't been a significant movement yet. I've heard of some people kind of stalling out. I don't predict that there will be any huge reductions in pricing. However, a few of the vendors that we've got that had announced earlier or price increases earlier this year are right now trying to help in at least extending their increases out till June, July, things of that nature. So it's going to at least flatten, hopefully keep things flat for a while.
Joe, I want to go to you next. You deal with a number of financial institutions in the corridor with your various developments and projects, and I think that's one of the great bright spots of our region and our state. We've got such great financial institutions. Can you talk a little bit about how they've been helpful to you over these last several weeks, and how are interest rates looking from your perspective in the short term?
Yes, absolutely. And you're right. I think we are fortunate to be in the region, the location we are, and have the local and regional banks that we have and that we work with. For the most part, to be honest, they've been pretty proactive. Some of them reached out to me before I even had a chance to reach out to them. So that was a positive thing. And it's important in our industry, and I think in every industry, to understand, you know, what options are out there and what you can do and what they're willing to do, because we're all in this together. Except the lenders want us to be our situation to be as positive as possible, because it has to work from our tenant to us back to the lender. So you know, our immediate concern started when the state started closing down certain sectors, and when you look at our tenant mix, we've probably got close to 100 different commercial tenants of all sizes and scales and in all different industries. And a fair amount of those were in the restaurant, bar, you know, that whole group of people that, you know, hair salons, you know, all kinds of different things that were forced to close. And they're all small businesses. And my first concern is, okay, how are we going to handle this? What can we do for these folks? Because they've got enough stress and they can't operate, so they have no way to generate income. So we were able, with a lot of people, work with your lender to come up with some ways to help defer, you know, some of those rents by changing up some of our structures and doing some things. And we're able to pass that on. So as I think Mary and it may have said earlier, trying to do some of these things for the community and for the businesses, the appreciation there is pretty strong. And in some instances, as we got closer to April 1, or, you know, knowing that, okay, this is where we're really going to see where the rubber meets the road, because, you know, there's a lot of rents due, not only commercial, but residential. And we had sent out some pretty detailed emails to all of our lenders of phasing process of what we wanted to try to do. And knowing we weren't going to have answers back, we just made executive decision, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to help out, and we'll see if we can get it to work out on the back end. And fortunately, you know, that's working now. The hard part is not knowing how long, you know, and how much you can do, because even if you can defer some rents and do some things and try to work out a plan, and I think like Mike said earlier, how do we know? Our hope is that all these businesses can come back, but, you know, who knows? So yeah, it's like I said, you know, it's you know, take a leap of faith, and some of these decisions are going to be made on the old school of a handshake and an agreement, and we'll deal with it. Like I said to all of them, once we figure out where we're at and where we're coming out of this thing, and whoever knows when that is, then we'll sit down and hopefully we can work together to work out a plan that works for everybody to make everyone whole. But until then, right now, that's not our concern. Our concern is trying to do what we can to help. So that's the challenge. But the lenders, I'm going to tell you, honestly, have been fantastic.
Great, thank you. Mary, I'm going to go back to you. Cash is king in times of trouble. We at the Corridor Business Journal are really seeing our receivables dry up over the past couple of weeks. It's really amazing how much they've dried up. Can you talk a little bit about this in the radio world and how your clients are handling payables?
Yeah. Really good question. And, one of the things as you guys were talking, I also got to thinking about, because we're all staying in place, is a big sector or a big part of our business generally, especially as we come into the summer months, is certainly entertainment and outdoor events and all kinds of things that happen in this community all the time that right now are a huge question mark. And people are really struggling with what to do with that. Are we going to be open in time to do this or that or the other thing? So what generally happens is we just sort of take a look at that and say, we can't control it. We probably won't get it. So just start to plan for that. So you have to make, as Joe said, a lot of these decisions based on what reality is and then figure it out later. But from the standpoint of receivables, yes, we're already starting to see some of our, especially the businesses that really are the lifeblood of a lot of them that are closed down now. We're seeing some delays in payments, and we've just, sort of talked about the fact that we'd rather be proactive and help these businesses once they know a little better about where they're going to be on some payment plans and some forgiveness of some of this if we can do that. So we're kind of looking at all of that, but certainly our industry, because it is, we're sales driven and we're driven on cash. And if you can't have a business open, you can't generate cash and you can't pay your bills. And that's just the reality of what happens. So we expect to see on a local level, we'll see that first. And then we'll start to see on a regional and a national level, we'll start to see that dribble in, and some will be better than others. But we expect that over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, we'll see kind of a better picture of where we're at. But we anticipate that our write-offs are going to be high this year.
Mike, I want to go back to you. Do you hold out any hope for an infrastructure bill from the federal government to further stimulate the economy? I think you've talked about this at past economic CBJ events and wondered what you're hearing right now.
Well, you would think, John, we could get some consensus here on this one. They can't agree on much out there, but whether you're a Democrat or an independent or a Republican, we all need the roads and we all need to fix the bridges and so on and so forth all across America here. So I do hold out hope that they can come together at least on this one thing that everyone should be able to agree upon and get a bill put through. Also, there's going to be a lot of people, I believe, that are going to need a job. They're going to need to go back to work. They may not be in construction right now or part of that industry, but they can make jobs available there if they can get a bill passed through. So I'm certainly hoping that can happen. But I don't know if they will or not. Nobody does. But it's the one thing I think that across all forms of politics, we should be able to agree upon.
Charlie, I'm going to go to you next. I want to see if you want to comment at all on the infrastructure bill, if you're hearing anything. And then, Charlie, can you also talk about, are there any disruption issues with your supply chain that you might be able to comment on?
Taking one at a time, the infrastructure bill, I still sit on the board of the National Ready Mix Concrete Association, and this is a huge item for our association, obviously across the country every year. Again, kind of like Mike just said, where there's some hope out there that you would think that this should be a no-brainer. Usually it's a matter of not if it's going to pass, but how much. Normally it's almost like oh yeah, well, we've got this much left, fine, we'll put this toward it. The country continues to fall behind. I think something will get passed. However, there's also always the funding that kind of goes along with it, so they're always kind of borrowing ahead in it anyway. We don't see it so much locally in terms of projects usually keep plodding along, where in some parts of the country, different pieces that aren't critical right at that moment may shut down. But I agree with Mike that we need it. It should be a no-brainer, but when it's going to happen, I don't know. As for supply chain right now, again, we're seeing a few of our more high-priced or odd masonry type products take a little longer to get. Some we've been given a kind of they're throwing up their hands going, we don't know when we'll be able to get you the product. That's a very small percentage of our sales. And most of it, they're not critical sales or critical pieces to the projects. In terms of the basic ingredients of concrete, the sand, cement, the stone and sand are locally sourced. Those plants are up and running, producing a very good product at the present time and coming out of the winter. And as for the cement mills, they're all up and running. And we actually, last year, I can tell you that we, over 90% of the cement we used it came from U.S. owned mills, and right here in the United States, we're not using any foreign sourced powder in our products right now.
Joe, I want to go to you next on the supply chain. Can you comment a little bit? Are you seeing any supply chain challenges, and maybe can you also comment a little bit on any materials prices that you're impacting in your various developments and construction projects?
Sure. As of, right now, for the most part, all of our materials and everything that we typically use are not a problem getting. Actually, it's been pretty easy to get because, some of the projects, residential and other ones are slowing down. But our commercial and our multifamily that we've had contracts under construction are still moving. So we're not having any issue getting that. I do know that we had a little bit of a hiccup, but I think they worked their way through it on a bunch of product coming in for a hotel that we've been working on as far as getting the furniture and other things, because those you have to get in well in advance and be ready. And I think they worked their way through some of those by changing some direction and suppliers, because some of it was coming from China and overseas, I believe. So that got worked out. But as of right now, haven't seen that, and I haven't seen any price increases. We're hoping that concrete price and brick is going to really get competitive.
It can't get any more competitive, Joe.
Oh, that's what they always say. Come on. Hey, we expect you to make a little profit. We don't take you from that, but
Thank you.
So this next question is going to go to the group. And does anybody have a good handle on the ag economy and where they see it headed? I failed to get a good ag maybe expert or somebody that's deep in the industry right now. But can anybody comment on what they're seeing in the ag space? Maybe Mike, do you do some hauling for the ag world?
Well, I would say in general, everybody's got to eat, right? And the farmer's got to farm, and we got to keep everybody moving in that direction. But however, just as recently as yesterday, we had a meat packing plant closed down, and they're starting to talk about shortages of meat, pigs and hogs and cows and all that stuff as we go forward here. So it could be really adversely affected depending on the virus here. So another fear factor for many of us out there. I don't plan on being a vegetarian anytime soon, but if things like this happens, we may be vegetarians. So I think it's in flux as well as everybody else is here, and they're hoping for the best as well.
Charlie, you got any handle on the ag side?
More so what we're hearing in terms of agricultural equipment. I think that market's been fairly tight for quite a while. As far as I know, most of the processing plants may not be running at 100% right now, but most of what we do would be more on the processing side. There aren't any huge expansions going right now, but I don't see great things, but I agree with Mike that we've got to eat.
Well, I can tell you from the agriculture, from corn and beans and And some of our guys in Nebraska, as well as farmers in Iowa, we were seeing the usual sort of early spring planting advertising. So that really hasn't stopped. And now they're anxious to get into the fields and do all of that. There is some concern, though, we've heard on delivery of things like insecticides and some of those things, but that's kind of down the road. So just from our little part of the world, especially in Nebraska, I know some of our markets are really, really, really tied to the local economy, whether it's the corn, the beans, the wheat, and right now that seems to be okay. And the weather is, like usual, more of a challenge than some of the COVID right now, but could change too with supply.
I'd like to, another question from the audience. One is, how are you viewing the stimulus assistance given so far, short-term stopgap, real financial statement support, and what else would you like to see in the future from a stimulus plan, besides, of course, the infrastructure bill that we already commented on? So does anybody want to talk about some of that stimulus assistance so far and how they've seen that impact business so far?
I mean, I can go if you want first. With the stimulus and the PPP loans, which are the for employees and payroll, we're starting to see some of that roll out. I don't know. I'm assuming most people, if you're eligible to apply for that, you did. We did get notice that we will be receiving ours, and they want to be closing on those loans here soon. So that's great, and that's affected not us personally, only us personally, with being able to not do any layoffs and keep everybody on staff. But that's been a big discussion we've had with a lot of our tenants, and with what they've been applying for and looks like they're going to get. So not only is that part of those stimulus is to help pay salary, but it's also to help them pay their rents and leases and operating expenses, for a period of time. So I think that portion of it is pretty solid. We have one of our individuals that sit in on the governor's talks every day, and understanding that those first rounds of grants that they had went out, and I think they went out to a lot of the small businesses, which made a lot of sense to me, which were bars, restaurants, and those types of folks who seemed like the ones that needed, that first round pretty hard, because they all got forced to close down. So again, I think those are all good things, and that's going to be a shot in the arm to help some of those folks and businesses hopefully not only return, not stay in business, but also return in business here when we're able to. So in my opinion, that's been good. I don't know that I can speak on what other else is out there that other people could, but that's my opinion on what I've seen so far.
So Mike, you're too big for a lot of these stimulus monies. Charlie, I'm not quite sure how big you are, and Mary, you have a lot of radio stations. Can you, Mary or Charlie, talk about this and see if it's being helpful at all?
Well, I can speak from our perspective. We're sort of in the same position as Joe. I mean, I think it can be really helpful from the standpoint of keeping your staff, but also to be able to help the communities be able to stay in business. So I think it's been a positive. I think now we're, and again, it's a big shout out to the local banks. They've been really good about this and very helpful to be able to try and satisfy the need, which is great. And they're put under a lot of pressure, and some people understand what they need to do better than others. So I think it's a real positive. The question will be, we're all sort of lined up, right? And so the question will be the ability to be able to get that stay and those funds short term. The other question though is, and it's kind of one that we talked about today, is that's great if we're through this in a course of a quarter, but if we're in this a lot longer, then I think it becomes a different discussion. But for right now, there's a lot of optimism and hope that it will help us bounce back quicker. So, and we were again impressed with the ability of the local banks in the area to help us.
Charlie, any comment on stimulus?
Same type thing. When this thing really hit hard 3.5 weeks ago, one of the first things I said to our leadership team was, at least for the foreseeable future, nobody's going to miss a check. Mm-hmm. And I was very vehement about this. One of the worst things we could do would be to jeopardize the financial health of our people, let alone their physical health. We've worked so darn hard to put our teams together to hire quality people the last few years, where we've gone out of an environment where we've had 2% unemployment, and trying to find good people has been a real challenge at all levels, from drivers to CFOs. Hence the thought of having to lay a bunch of our people off if things do tighten up severely, and have to go through this again and lose some of the people that we work so hard for. That's not a thought that I really want to entertain. Plus, just trying to do the right thing and to keep our people healthy financially. So it's got to help. I know it's not the silver bullet. I hope, along with everyone else, that we're through the majority of this fairly quickly. I'm afraid I've been kind of a Debbie Downer listening to some of the reports about how this may be a rolling virus for quite some time to come. So what our federal government does for us next is the big question.
Hey, Mike, I want to go to you before I go to our last question for the group. And Mike, the question I've got for you is it been any easier recruiting drivers over the past month or so? Can you just comment on that?
It has, John, because they've been very busy, right? Like I said, up until the end of March, all the freight you could haul, doing our best. The great thing is there was no traffic, or very little traffic, nothing impeding us from getting into Chicago and getting into LA and getting into Atlanta, in these really heavily congested places. So they've been very busy and they've been active. Their checks are going to be good. But I also mentioned that it's falling off quickly. And pretty soon, I think even drivers will be lining up at our doors, and whoever's able to keep going in the trucking business, looking for jobs, much like it was in 2008. When the economy fell down so much in 2008, truck drivers we were able to hire them then. And so I think, unfortunately, we've got that coming at us here for a good probably 2 months.
Okay, I think we're going to end on this last question. The question is coming from our somebody in the audience. The question is, how do you see your business change due to the new habits we are adapting during the pandemic, like working from home, ordering food, and what are you doing to adapt? I talked a little bit about the Corridor Business Journal. We're doing these webinars, trying to adapt a little bit. And so maybe we'll go around the horn, and how is your business adapting right now? Maybe, Mary, can we start with you again?
Sure. Well, for somebody who's, we're in the business of being around people, this has been challenging for us, but our new best friend is Zoom, right? So we're doing an awful lot with our staffs and our sales teams and trying to keep them motivated from working from home, and one, also being safe. So we've had to adapt to some of that. It causes you to plan things differently and prepare a little more and just be tied to these screens a little more than we even already have been. So there's been some of that. The other piece of this is how, for example, for us, we're looking to hire people. This is really challenging to try and be able to hire salespeople and train them and do all of that because of the social distancing. So we're making the best we're doing the best that we can. And we're also realizing too that there are opportunities for us to be able to do things that in a different way, which is always really positive. I think as we come out of this, some of the things that we thought were really important probably will not have the same kind of importance now, but other interactions that we can take advantage of, whether it's through the distribution channels that we have or the ability to be able to focus on what kinds of businesses we're in and how we talk to our people. I will tell you one thing, our business life, and probably everybody on this panel today, your business life will change, as has your personal life changed as a result of this, and it'll never be the same. My hope is that there'll be more positives out of it than negatives. And for people who have been around for a long time, I happen to like change. So for me, it's not a big deal, but there are others that really don't. And it's going to be a good learning experience for them to say, now's the time to try and do it, and we don't have another choice. So, I think it'll be some good stuff. I hope, though, that we don't forget and use isolation or the video stuff to take the place of human contact, because it's really important. And it's kind of what we built our community on, and we'll get back to that. And I look for the day when we can have events where people can get together and can talk to one another and take advantage of what makes it beautiful to live here. So, but it'll never be the same, that's for sure. Some good.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Mike, you want to talk a little bit about how you're learning from this and adapting as a company?
Our drivers come to mind for me right off the bat with as many as we have, and thank goodness for them. They're doing such a great job for us in America, not only at Heartland, but drivers all across America. But when you think about their day, their day is driving a truck for 8 to 10 hours. They're sleeping somewhere between 8 to 10 hours. They're really isolated almost all of the time. And what we've seen as a change here is when they go to deliver their loads or they go to pick up their loads, they're even being isolated more. Shippers are not allowing them out of their trucks. They don't want them walking around on the property. They want to make sure that they're getting them in and getting them out, which is all a good thing for us. So their delay time goes way down, which we've seen that happen. So I agree with Mary. There's going to be some positives and some negatives that come out of this, but in terms of our drivers and keeping things rolling, we're in good shape. And as long as we can get some of these businesses back working again, things will be fine. But if it prolongs for 2 or 3 quarters, it's going to be a disaster.
Charlie, you want to go next on how you're adapting to this and learning from the crisis?
Well, there's a joke in our company that I'm the absolute most technologically challenged person in the whole organization, and I've become much better at it. I can now spell Zoom, I can spell Teams, Skype, etc., and I feel like I'm glued to this little box on the table. Some things will be good. We periodically at different times of the year, weather impedes our travel when we're trying to get to some face-to-face meetings. We'll probably do a few more of these. I said to some of the younger people in the office last week, though, I said, still remember, nothing beats face-to-face contact. And it's great to see you. However, I'd really like to be sitting across from you. It's going to have an effect on us. It's going to affect how we gather, how we socialize, how we go to events. I had a person say the other day, how are you going to feel about going into Kinnick Stadium right now? Well, if the wind's blowing real hard, I'll probably be okay. And but right now, I'm kind of with everybody else. I don't know. But Mary is right. It will change.
Joe, you got the last word. Joe, you got the last word.
All right. Well, obviously it's changed a lot. Of our 40-some employees, the majority of them in our have the ability to work at home. So we were able to set that up very quickly for the individuals that could and wanted to. We have a small skeleton crew that comes in and out, so we're social distancing that way. We did close our office to outsiders a while ago, to outside anybody, and we've been doing meetings like this or everyday team conference calls. So there's some good that comes out of that. But I also think, over the years, we've had people that have asked to work at home, periodically. And our group, because we have so many different entities and so many different groups that all work closely together, it's really important have that social interaction and being there. And now that some of the folks have had to either work at home because they left the state, and we forced that to start in the beginning, and now they're feeling, now they're 2 or 3 weeks in, and they're like, yeah, I kind of miss being at work. I miss all the things that people loved about coming to work here and all the fun things that we do around here. So I do think you're right, Mary, that it's a changed world. But I also think some of the things that people thought was the way to go, they're starting to realize that, hey, coming into work and seeing everybody, it's like your family, and everybody's missing family. So we're hoping that we can get the family back together as quickly as we can.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Good.
That's well said, Joe. I appreciate that. We're gonna leave it there. I want to thank Mary and Mike and Charlie and Joe for being so honest with all of us today, and they've did a great job of just helping us understand where things are at right now and where things are headed. I did want to have a couple final comments. For those of you that were particularly interested in today's webinar, I'm excited that our mid-year economic review scheduled for June 24th, it will take place, but it will be a virtual event now. And we just confirmed that our keynote speaker is going to be Charlie Evans, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. So we're excited about having him speak to our group. And then we'll also have a panel of business leaders moderated by Jack Evans. And so we're looking forward to that coming up on June 24th. And I think people will be interested in on how that shakes out and what people's opinions are at that time. I also want to mention that our next scheduled CBJ event, non-webinar, is our Innovation Watch event. That's set for May 12th. That will be a virtual event that will be free. And that event will be exploring some of the latest advances in technology in the corridor. And we're also having a sub-theme of how innovation in Iowa has helped combat the COVID-19 crisis. So I think that's going to be of interest to a lot of people. I did want to mention that our fastest growing companies event has been moved to August, and the application deadline for that has been extended to May 15th. And then just lastly, our next webinar is coming up on Thursday, April 16th at 12 noon. We got one on workplace grief in an uncertain time. We got Kim Betchika from Kirkwood and Selena Pierman from Kirkwood as well, talking about workplace grief. And I think that's one of those topics that people might not want to talk about, but I think it's really important at this time. So you can register for free at that on our website at corridorbusiness.com/events. And finally, I have been asked how people can help the Corridor Business Journal during this challenging time. And as most of you know, we typically charge for these events, but we are offering them free right now to our readers and our friends. But I would encourage you to subscribe to the Corridor Business Journal, particularly the digital version, if you're not a subscriber already. That would help us out, continue to have these events and help our journalists continue to do the great work that they're doing. So thank you again to Mary Quass, Mike Gerdin, Joe Ahmann, and Charlie Rohde for participating today. Stay healthy and keep reading the Corridor Business Journal. Thank you.